We are live for our first local spotlight, and today's guest is Wendy Conrad with Your Happy Workplace. And if you guys have never heard of her, you've been missing out because she's one of probably the happiest people in the world that I've ever met, which is so appropriate for her business being called Your Happy Workplace. She is incredible. Her business model is incredible. And I thought, what a perfect way to start our newest segment for 2021, which is this local spotlight, which is where we are going to be going on and sharing with you guys the local businesses around the Treasure Coast and you guys learning about what they do and how they add value to our community. So I'm really excited to have Wendy on here today to start us off. Wendy, thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me, Lucy. This is very exciting.
Yes, it very much is. And if anything, you are the perfect person to start this off. So I want you to tell people a little bit about yourself, about your vision. What is Your Happy Workplace and what do you guys do?
I'm so glad you asked, Lucy. So I am Wendy Conrad. I am a work culture developer and strategist. I'm a certified chief happiness officer, and I founded Your Happy Workplace in 2019. And I work with businesses and organizations to help them discover, design, and implement custom work cultures that will inspire their teams and improve their bottom lines, and by using the science of happiness. So I do that in a bunch of different ways. I have workshops, I can coach one-on-one, and I also have an organizational offer that I do. So my mission and vision for my business is to make the world a happier place, one work culture at a time.
I love that. That is so amazing. And honestly, work culture is such an important part of everyone's lives. I mean, I think that the number one thing that businesses run into is the fact that if they aren't giving their businesses a happy work culture, a lot of times, even if people love their jobs, they will leave if it's an unhappy environment.
We'll see.
I've been there. I mean, I feel like everyone has had that bad. Look, you already even have a good. Katie says, "Love, love, love with
Hey,
Your Happy Workplace."
Hi,
already
Katie.
have raving fans. I'm glad to know that someone already knows who you are and what is great and what you guys do. So I think that it's such a big thing to make aware to a lot of businesses out there, because sometimes you don't even realize how unhappy some of your employees are. And sometimes that workplace culture can go down and it's contagious, right? Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when you have someone who's kind of infecting, and sometimes it can only take one person, and you don't realize what kind of effect they're having on your team and your business until they're gone. So yes, and I feel like now more than ever, which is my most annoying phrase from all the commercials now more than ever, but it's true, now more than ever, work culture is so important. And I feel like a lot of organizations and businesses kind of work their business backwards. They work it from the outside in. They think about the money and the customers and the marketing, and all of that stuff is important, of course, to your business for it to thrive. But if you start with your people and treat them as human beings versus parts in a machine, and that's just like the bare minimum. But then I like to help organizations and businesses create these amazing work cultures where you're actually, oh my God, happy to go to work. What? Yes, that can be a thing, and that should be what we aspire to do. And I think part of the challenge that I have is a lot of people are so kind of, we're conditioned to think that work is supposed to suck, that, you know, that's a pipe dream. I've had people say it to my face about my business. When I tell them what they do, they say, well, that's not realistic. And with what I like to say too is now that we have 5 generations in the workplace, the bulk of that being Gen X and millennials, they are demanding this kind of workplace. They are leading the shift in work culture where they are vetting you, they are checking you out. They want to know how your other employees feel about working for you. They want to feel purpose in their work. They want to feel like their work is connected to a greater purpose. And if you're not paying attention to all those things, you're going to be missing out on some great talent for your business.
Absolutely. And I think that now more than ever,
Now more than ever.
People are actually going, you have the resource of online, so it's so easy to get information on companies and past employees and how they felt about these businesses. But like you said earlier, when someone was like, oh, well, that's unrealistic. No, it's not unrealistic, but you don't realize how realistic it is until you finally experienced it. And that's the problem, is not a lot of people are experiencing it, because you think, you think things will be better, but you don't even realize how much better they could be until you are actually in that environment. Because I can tell you with Aero Title, best boss I've ever had in my life. I didn't even know you could be appreciated so much, like, honestly. But when you see a boss do what a good boss should do and start treating and just respecting and understanding and trying to keep that workplace culture good, like, you realize, wow, like, I do enjoy coming to work every day. I do enjoy what I do. Like, it's insane because of the
it's kind of like getting out of a bad relationship, right? You don't realize how bad it really was until you A, get out of it, and then B, get with somebody who actually appreciates you. And then you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I put up with all that BS before.
Exactly. Oh, what a great analogy.
Yeah, I want to go back, extract something that you said before, because I think part of the problem is, and I hate to monolith any kind of group, but if we're going to talk about generations, the older generations, they're so ingrained with hard work and work ethic and, not aspiring to these other things like quality of life. And so when that is the generation of your leadership, they don't feel like this stuff is important, or that it's unprofessional to talk about feelings and needs and values in the workplace. And so that can kind of create this dissonance between, well, that's not the work culture that I had when I was your age, that can kind of, and again, it's not everybody in specific generations, but that can kind of be when you have leadership in one kind of generation and they've had one experience coming up, and then you've got this younger workforce coming in being like, ain't nobody got time for that. I don't want to, we spend most of our waking lives at work. Shouldn't it be someplace that's fulfilling and inspiring and connected to purpose?
Absolutely.
I think so.
Absolutely. And I think especially here in America, where it's so ingrained in us to be like workaholics. It really is. And I mean, I tell people all the time, because I obviously have my little travel thing and everything, and I'm like, we work to live. We don't live to work. But while you're working, you shouldn't hate your life. You really shouldn't. And you should be doing something that you care about, and that I used to work for Papa John's, and I actually loved what I did. Like, even though, like, it was pizza, like, who's passionate about pizza? But, like, if you can find that passion in what you're trying to do, no matter what it is, the workplace culture is a lot. But I want to kind of go into, I think that especially now more than ever, I feel like I can't stop using it now.
Yeah.
With 2020 in our rear view, I guess, realizing how important change is and how important adapting is. And I'm sure, as you brought up, you said that there is the older generation and the younger generation that are in the workplace together. And I'm sure that's really difficult for a lot of businesses who are trying to cater to both of them. What kind of advice could you give to a business that is, working with both, or what's the biggest complaint that you hear?
Well, I would say that communication is the key to everything, because not only do different generations communicate in different ways, but different people communicate in different ways. And
Yeah.
so when you understand that just understanding that not everyone communicates in not everyone communicates in the same way, and that includes yourself, and recognize the different communicators that you're speaking with and how they absorb information. I mean, there's so many nuances to that. People in different generations, they communicate the way they do because their experiences shaped them. You think about now is a perfect time to talk about historical events and how they shape us as generations.
Yeah.
When you have the generation that lived through 9/11, they are coming at things through life is short, and those kinds of historical events, along with a lot of other things, shape generations, and they shape how we communicate and how we perceive life. So if you can just understand that, especially if you have a multi-generational workforce, that they all communicate differently and come from a place of common ground, and just do a little bit, Google's a great thing. Just do a little bit of research about the different generations and why they are the way they are. That can give you tremendous insight into their behaviors and their perceptions about work and life.
Absolutely. And, I think that you bring up such a great point when it comes to communication. I think everybody wants communication at the end of the day, but communicating in a different way. I think that there's a lot of people who feel like the younger generations don't work as hard. And I think they're just working differently, and they have those different expectations. And I'm sure you can agree with that, as I see your head nodding.
I have so much to say as you're talking.
Please.
Well, and I'm sure we'll talk more about this at the end, I hope, because I'm so in the thick of it right now in building this workshop that I'm doing. And we'll talk about details about that later. But talking about hustle culture and how we've kind of all bought into that. And so when the older generation, or whoever, it doesn't even have to be attached to a generation, but when you have leadership or somebody over here who thinks that working to yourself to the ground is a badge of honor and that's how it should be, and then you have this group over here who's like, I want work-life blend, quality of life is important to me, and we can accomplish that and be productive.
Yes.
This side might see that as weakness or laziness, because I know millennials, they are not lazy. They are hard workers, but they're motivated by different things. They're motivated by different things. And so when you have those conversations, and it's not going to be the same thing that you might be motivated by. In the past, people think, well, if I just throw some more money at somebody, that's going to mean they're going to work harder for me. That's not true anymore. And so understanding those kinds of things and trying to see things from different points of view is key. And then having those conversations. In building this workshop, I came across a statistics that said that 69% of people in management roles don't want to communicate with the team. They feel that makes them uncomfortable having communications with the team.
Yeah.
You're in a management role. That's almost the one thing that you need to do is communicate. And I've worked in places before where people we say managing by email. It's like, you can't do it like that. So I always come back to communication, because that's so key in building these kinds of workplaces.
It truly, truly is. And I know you have that workshop coming up. What do you think is one of the biggest issues? I think with a lot of workplaces, sometimes they can't recognize when there is an issue going on or maybe when it's too late. So what is like a tip that you can give for like people like what is like a major sign of like there's some workplace unhappiness going on, or what's the biggest problem that a lot of workplaces are running into?
Ooh, awareness, self-awareness, such a huge component and skill in being a good leader. So if you're talking about kind of what kind of symptoms are coming up, and there's I've had leaders in the past who would never be my client because they don't have that self-awareness. They think everything is fine and this is the way to do it, and you know, who cares about work culture? But if you're looking for signs, you're looking for, if you're having a staff meeting and no one's speaking up when you're asking questions. And if you're not asking questions, then that's a sign. If you're not asking for feedback, that's a sign. So I kind of equate what I do to dog training. I've heard a lot of dog trainers say, I'm not training the dog, training the dog parent. So a lot of it is just do people feel like they can bring up ideas or have conversations with you about hard things? Are they just nodding along and not, communicating to you? Are they not collaborating with team members? Those kinds of things. But it's hard because if you don't have psychological safety in your workplace, which means people feel comfortable coming to you with things that may not be popular or uncomfortable topics, then it's hard to know sometimes what's actually going on. And so that's why it's helpful to hire people like me who can go in and have real conversations with your people when maybe they don't feel comfortable having those conversations with you. So sometimes when you're in the leadership role, unless you've intentionally created this kind of workplace, it might be hard to see.
Absolutely. And I think even some little things within the workplace. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw on our story that we actually did today. I met with Wendy for lunch yesterday and I got a happiness workplace packet kit and it came with these cool glasses. And I was super excited. It also came with gold stars, which are all
you're
gone
down
now.
to one. Very good.
I'm down to one because everybody was good today.
You can give that to yourself, Lucy.
Well, great. I've been waiting all day, but I couldn't deem it to myself.
Pretend like I'm there giving it to you.
Well, thank you, Wendy. I appreciate that. Now I have got a gold star. But I went into the office and I just was like, if you guys check out our story, I'm like, I'm going to just give people gold stars and see how they feel, like how they react. Cause like, I feel like that's something that's kind of cheesy, obviously cheesy, but like, something that just a little burst of happiness in the office. And they were just like, what? And I'll tell you something right now. They've been wearing their stars all day.
It seems like something silly and simple, but I have been in workplaces in the past where, I give members of the team a gold star for, turning in paperwork on time or whatever, little things. And they would, if they did something and they didn't get the gold star, they'd come find me and ask, where's my gold star? Now it seems ridiculous, but it's because it's not the gold star, it's the being recognized. It's the recognition. So no matter how you do it, people want to be seen, they want to be recognized in the work that they do. And even if it's little small things, we as humans want that. We need that.
It's true. It's true. And especially because with the human connection that people want right now, with just how disconnected our whole world has been, like, I feel like it's, important to have that workplace culture be like it's your backbone. Those are the people you've been consistently seeing all the time right now, over this long haul of 2020 that it was. So just being happy in that environment is, I think, very important. So I think just that recognition is really just key,
It's
key.
huge and so
Huge.
impactful.
Yeah, it really is. So you are local across the Treasure Coast, and I know that you can actually work with businesses all over the world if you wanted to.
Internationally, no, not to know like a microphone. Yes, yes. Thank you, pandemic. Because before I kind of put those geographical restrictions on myself where I was just thinking locally. But now that I've worked a client from beginning to end completely virtually, I was like, I can work with anybody anywhere. So yes, that is true. Thank you for bringing that to everyone's attention.
You're very welcome, Wendy. But I wanted to bring up the other point that obviously this is local spotlight. So do you feel like there is a slight, like, what is the difference that you're going to get from Wendy in person in the like you coming into their workplace rather than having that virtual aspect? So obviously I feel like you being local here and going into these businesses might have a different impact.
It's definitely a different vibe. In person is my jam, as I always say. Wendy via Zoom is different, and I hate people who talk about themselves in the third person, and I just did it. But me via Zoom versus me in person is a totally different thing, and it's a different way to work together. Certainly, the goals can be accomplished online, and there's not going to be any really major drawbacks to that, but working in person, and it can also depend on your business and the way that it's structured. If you have a lot of your team members who are working from home now, obviously that's not going to be a possibility. So having everybody congregate online is certainly a great option, but in person is definitely a different kind of feel, and we can do different kinds of things in person. But the ultimate goals can be accomplished either way.
Yeah. And I mean, if any of you guys have been to a networking event with Wendy, she brings like Nerf guns as the prize.
Confetti guns.
Oh, Nerf guns, confetti guns. You're right. Confetti guns are better. But it's just so cool, those little things that you do to really just, keep it fresh, keep it simple, but fresh and out there. And your energy really is contagious, I think. So that's awesome that you bring that value and that aspect to businesses. Now, going forward, you've got a lot coming up with your workshops. So why don't you tell us a little bit about those workshops, what those are entailing, and how businesses can kind of get involved with that?
Thanks for asking, Lucy. So my upcoming workshop is called Understanding, Reducing, and Managing Stress in the Workplace. So needed. Okay. So I started building this kind of towards the end of last year, and it's a 3-hour workshop. Somebody asked me about kind of doing a stress management workshop, and I thought, well, you can't do the management piece without doing the understanding and the reducing piece also, because just focusing on the management, and I hate that word, but the management part of it, it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on something that in some cases can be preventable. So let's talk about those things first. And the management piece is so much more effective when you understand how stress affects us mentally and physically, and all of the things that are going on, and why when we're stressed we behave and feel like we do. So those are all such important pieces. So that's coming up the end of January. It's January 27, 28, 29. It's a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, 1 hour each day, because I can't sit in front of a computer for 3 hours straight. So I wouldn't expect you guys to either. So you can email me at wendy@yourhappyworkplace.com. or I can send you the link to the information on how you can, and that's for individuals. So if you're in a leadership role in your company, and you want to, it's a business write-off, by the way. And if you need, I also just put up Convince My Boss. So if you want to come to this workshop and you're not sure kind of how to approach it with your boss, asking your boss to send you to it, I have a Convince Your Boss template letter that you can send that can kind of get you started.
Nice.
But the workshop is also, now that it's built, also available to organizations. So if you have an organization that has a leadership team and you want to teach them these skills, I can bring it to your team. So that's also an option. So lots of ways to experience the workshop, but I'm so excited about it. I spent a lot of time building it with love, and I know it's going to help a lot of people, because stress in the workplace, I mean, now more than ever, you know, let's talk about this. Stress affects how we work, whether the stress is coming from the workplace or outside the workplace. We need to talk about all of those things, and we do in this workshop.
Absolutely. And you just brought up a good point, I feel, or something that I want to ask about. I've once heard someone mention, leave your problems at home. How do you feel about that?
Oh, girl, let's get into it. Let's get into it. So that is not detrimental to your team members as individuals, but detrimental to your business as a whole. We can't ignore our humanity once we walk through the door of our workplace. That is dangerous. We're not parts in a machine. We are human beings. Yes, we're doing work. We're producing things, but we are human beings. So when things happen in our life, when things happen to us collectively as a nation, those affect how we show up to work. So denying that is causing stress to your team, if that's what's going on in your work culture. So that's an old way of thinking, that being a human being is unprofessional, that talking about feelings and all of these kind of things is seen as unprofessional. When I think one of the silver linings of the past year that we've had is that has kind of been put under a microscope. When everybody shifted to working from home, you couldn't ignore that your team was a human being, because their kids are running around behind them. They're trying to homeschool people. Maybe they've got somebody at home that they're taking care of, or they've got other family members that are there, or maybe they get sick, or they're having health concerns because we're in a pandemic. All of that kind of got shoved into the workplace, and I use that meaning remote teams and people who are working in person, but you couldn't ignore it anymore. And
That's
so I think more people are waking up to the fact that not just allowing humanity in the workplace, but celebrating it should be part of the work experience.
I think one of the really cool things that I remember from, back in when it was the pandemic and people were really stuck at home. I mean, even still now, maybe the news, seeing the news broadcasters from their living rooms, like that was very cool. Like I guess I say cool, but like it was very off. But like you're seeing these people that are usually like with these dramatic backdrops and like super pinned up, but like again, you can't deny the humanity that they're in their living rooms because of the situation that we're in. But I feel like it brought a piece of authenticity to just everyone, like the human to human, the more authentic piece that everybody's just looking for is that connection. And then they're like, oh, this person's just like me. They have a living room just like me. Like, you know what I mean? They're not just a robot talking. Yeah.
My husband and I were watching a newscast the other day, and the weatherman, who was obviously at home with a green screen, you could see his dog's head like bobbing by and the tail. And I don't know if he noticed or not, but it must have happened a lot, because when he went back to the other newscasters, they were like, oh, Fluffy's making another guest appearance. But but it gives that kind of realness and
Yeah.
makes us see that everybody's human.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, video has launched so much because of all of that. And I think it's good. I think that people needed to see that little humanity, and as well as a lot of businesses, and you might be able to speak to this as well, is that the businesses have changed in the way that they not only treat, but how they work with their employees. Because now a lot of businesses understand that they can trust their employees to be productive working from home now.
Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes. So I'm sure there are a lot of people watching and people that you know and that I know who maybe had a team who was saying, we could work from home. It's
Yeah.
not going to really change much. And people resisting that because that's not how we've done it in the past.
Yeah.
That phrase, that quote that I always say, the most dangerous phrase in the English language is, we've always done it this way.
Yes.
And so now they have been forcibly thrust into this remote way of working, kicking and screaming sometimes. But then now they're seeing, oh yeah, this isn't a huge deal. This isn't, I can't trust, because if you can't trust your team to do their work under those circumstances, why did you hire them?
Exactly.
You hired them.
Yeah.
So you should be able to trust them to do their work. And that, I'm glad you brought that up, because that brings me to another thing that I want to say as a result of us shifting how we work, is that we need to redefine success. What does success mean for your organization? Does it mean that your team members are working 60 hours a week? Does that mean success? Or does it mean that they have a balanced life and are being efficient, productive, and having time to take a break and refuel and rest?
Wow. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people will notice that if they do have that time to relax and I mean, think about how you feel when you come back from a vacation and you're like, oh, I'm ready to get back in this. And you almost miss work a little bit. And, you have that refuel. But if you don't have that and you're just working yourself into the ground, then you're not going to be able
Just
to.
think, would you ask your team to work an entire day without food or water?
I mean, why not?
Rest and
Just kidding. I'm just
being
kidding.
combative. Rest and play and joy and movement are fuel for us to be productive. Just like food and water is fuel for our bodies. Those things are fuel for our mind to be productive. And so don't you want your team to be productive?
Yes, I think so. I think every business wants that. Awesome. That we talked about a lot today. I think that people really do understand a lot of what you do a little bit more. Is there any last things that you want to mention about kind of what you do when you get into the business, or just some last tidbits that people should know?
I'll give just a brief rundown of how, because people are like, you're a happy workplace, work culture developer. What does that even mean? So what I do is I come into your organization. We introduce this work to the team so everybody understands what's going to happen. And then I have conversations, real conversations, not just sending everybody a survey, which can be a helpful tool. But if that's all you're doing, then it's not going to work. I have real conversations with your team and ask them questions based on 10 categories, like communication, like connection to the purpose, like workplace wellness, and get the full picture, along with asking questions of leadership about all those things, and find out what's really going on, so we can create a custom plan for you to move forward, along with a custom timeline of where you should start first, because sometimes there's a lot of things that come up and it can be overwhelming. So that's the gist of what I do. If you want to learn more about that process, you can go to my website, yourhappyworkplace.com, work with me, and it all kind of spells it out more there. But that's what I do. It's really information gathering and kind of giving you a custom plan to start to create these kinds of workplaces.
And an outside perspective, because sometimes I feel like people need that outside perspective to come in and, you know, kind of analyze what's going on, just like when you ask a friend about a situation that you're in the middle of, because you can't see it, or sometimes you got your blinders on.
You're so ensconced in it that it's hard to see the forest for the trees, as they say.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for sharing the little bits about stress and your workshop that's coming up. Please, guys, if you guys are interested in that, or if you know a business or an individual who wants to be a part of that, reach out to her. She is local along the Treasure Coast. We started this local spotlight to help spotlight these local businesses along the Treasure Coast who are really making a difference or really impacting our community in the best ways possible, by offering great services. So thank you, Wendy, for coming on. You guys, also, we are going to have this segment every week, every Friday. We did it today at 4 p.m., but moving forward, it's going to be at 2 p.m. You guys can follow us at Arrow Title Services on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that jam. So make sure you guys do that.
Point.
And point. I love it.
I'm trying to figure out which way I'm supposed to be pointing here.
And make sure you guys celebrate your employees.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you so much, Wendy, for coming on. We will see you guys next week for our local spotlight, and you guys have a great weekend. Bye.